This is my next prep update at 6 weeks out from PCA South Korea. I've now booked my flights. I'll be going out on the 15th of September, Tuesday, from London Heathrow. So we've got like a 4-hour drive to the airport. Then there's a 12-hour, 40-minute direct flight from Heathrow with Virgin Atlantic, and that actually lands the next morning in Korea, because it's such a big time difference and jump forward that it lands the next day. And then I'm returning the following Friday, the 25th of September. And that's going to be like an even longer flight because there's a stopover in Paris. But I actually managed to get my flights free with American Express points, which is really cool. And then supplement needs as well as PCA will be contributing a little bit to the rest of the travel costs. So it's worked out really well for me to be able to do that show and explore the place. So the plan is to do the show on the Saturday the 19th. It gives me a really nice period of time where I start my carb load on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It gives me time to lose any kind of water retention from the flights, show on the Saturday, and then I've got a few days out there to travel around. I'm probably going to rent a car and go to a couple of different cities and things. And then when I get back, it will give me a 3-week and 2-day time frame between then and the British. Obviously I won't be going over the top with food, but I feel it's a shame to go halfway across the world to somewhere I'd probably never visit and not really be able to enjoy it. And I'm confident I can put it back in for the British if I decide to do it. And part of me thinks, should I not be as good as I was in 2024, which has always been a little bit of a worry on this prep just because of my pec tear and things. I may just reverse out then and go for the universe next year, because I really thrived when I was living over in Alicante. You know, Torquay is absolutely lovely in the summer like this, like out here doing my steps today, sat on the picnic bench doing this video. But when you get to the winter, it's tipping down with rain, gets dark at 4 in the afternoon, and it's just pretty depressing at that time. And I'm currently in a bit of a dispute with my residents association that owns the block of flats that I live in about whether I can sublet out my flat or not. So once I know whether that's the case, I'll either rent out my flat or sell it and then move to Spain over the winter, hopefully, and then back to the UK, but go a little bit more central Midlands, because I really want to take my coaching business to the next level. It makes sense for me to be in the Midlands as I'm driving up kind of 4 to 6 hours each weekend to judge these shows and be at my clients' shows. And I kind of outgrown the flat that I live in, of where I'm at currently. But prep-wise, I'm really feeling it now at 6-week out mark. Yesterday was one of the toughest days of prep so far, and I enjoy feeling like this. I thrive like this. I feel productive. It's like how I want to feel. So it's not a bad thing, but just objectively how I'm feeling at the moment. Like my legs are heavy. Even coming on a walk down here, I was like, fuck, I don't want to get up off this sofa. And like yesterday I went in for a leg session, and it was a big leg day, and always get quite nervous because you've got to make sure you're matching how strong you are in the previous session as long as possible through the prep. And I was exhausted, you know. I was sat in the car like, I do not want to go into this gym right now and do this leg session. I'm trying to give myself any reason to take an additional rest day and do the legs tomorrow, but sometimes you get in there, the blood starts pumping, and I put my setup of my squats. I actually managed to, what I did last time 30 days ago in the prep on the barbell back squat, which now I've lost another 5 kilos, so that's double my body weight for, I think I've got 5 reps. The set which you're seeing is slightly below double my body weight for 8 reps, but really, really happy with how my strength is holding up. And yeah, my current plans at the moment, cardio wise, I'm doing 40 minutes every single day now. Usually I'll go uphill treadmill, but I've also got a spin bike at home. Plus I'm doing 7.5k steps per day, which is, there was also another show announced 2 days before South Korea, which I maybe could have done, but it would have mean me not bringing my best. China, which I've already competed in 2023, I'll put up some photos of that now, is on Thursday, the 17th of September. I think Ike, the Czech collector, the men's physique PCA pro, as well as a few others are going out to China and then coming over to Korea afterwards. The way my peak week's set up, I know I've got to be laser focused on the one show to bring the same look. So unfortunately not going to China this year. Personally, just stepping back on stage at my best is going to be a massive win for me, hence why I'm going for technically what's it supposedly would be the easier show, as well as China being quite restrictive on internet connection. You know, you can't use the Western internet, you have to use the Chinese internet, which means communication with clients and WhatsApp would be really difficult, and I can't let my coaching business take a hit. But the prize money in China was something like £15,000 for first place, which is tempting. Very tempting. Korea is, I think it's 2,500 for first place. They actually have a natural pro show the day before as well, which is double the prize money if you're natural. I think natural bodybuilding is a bigger thing in Korea than the non-natural, which is surprising. But it's in Seoul, which is the capital of Korea. Looks amazing. Got a really nice hotel booked for a night after the show as well, which is going to be cool to experience. Just thought I'd show you some of Torquay seafront as well. So I'm walking through. There's currently a fairground here, which is awesome. There's these crazy rides, which I would not go on this kind of thing. It's a fair play to anyone who wants to go on that huge bungee thing up there that fires you up in the air, and there's another one just behind it that like rotates round and round. Terminator, I'd probably have the balls to go on. That's like a classic. And then there's all like the kids stuff here, but if you go across the road here, we got the main seafront. You got Rock Walk in the distance over there. And then it's right in the middle of the kids' holidays at the moment. So a lot of tourists around here, which is really nice. A lot for most people, but when you have an office job, it means you intentionally have to go out and do like an hour of walking to be able to get those steps in. My food intake is actually quite a bit lower than it was at this point in my last prep. As I've mentioned before, I'm on 3,000 calories on a training day, 2,500 calories on a non-training day. Very rarely have I got this low. I'm going to go into my meals in a bit and show you each of those meals and what they look like, but my first meal is a low carb meal, being eggs and egg whites. Because I train in the afternoon, it makes sense to have that fasted period of lower blood glucose to attack the fat reserves, time the nutrients around the training, like the carbohydrates that is, so I can lose body fat at certain parts of the day, preserve, grow muscle at different parts of the day. I'm getting happier and happier with my look. I'll go into my check-in tomorrow and I'll attach this as a part of the video too. It's good how the look is progressing. Like, I'm very flat at the moment. I had one high day recently, which was 700 grams of carbs, other than the Domino's pizza, which was an assigned cheat meal in my last video. That's been my only other high day of the prep, so I've not had regular refeeds so far, but my coach's plan is to get me in shape with 3 weeks left to go into the show so that we can take the stress off the body, trial refeeds, get my digestion used to the high carb intake again. And I felt a bit fuller after that because I had an arm day the next day, but I know that's not much food from what I can take. For my Worlds prep, I did like 3 days of 1,200 grams of carbs, and I was already on a higher baseline of around 500 before that. So that's the aim, to kind of get back to that kind of level of fullness. So it's been weird not to feel any kind of pump so far in the prep, but you got to keep your head in the game and remind yourself that you're always working towards that show day look, and nothing in the lead up really matters as long as that show day look is nailed. My current cycle at the minute is 1,400 milligrams of Masteron, 500 milligrams of test propionate, 300 milligrams of trenbolone acetate was added recently. I'm also on 50 milligrams of Anavar pre-workout, and then 50 milligrams of Winstrol, which I split AM and PM. Arimidex has come into the mix at 1 milligram every other day. We may be pushing this up. I've got blood test results back recently. Really important, crucial time frame to have your bloods done at 6 weeks out from a show, to see where your thyroid is at, your estrogen is at, your cortisol is at, and generally really happy with everything on the blood tests apart from the estrogen, which I'll explain a bit later in the video as well. But yeah, I will continue this video when I get back home. Just going to finish off the rest of my steps. Oh, a couple other things that I wanted to mention. Got some new glasses, which are pretty cool. If you see, they got cameras on the lenses, and I got my Apple Watch. I feel like I'm becoming symbiotic with artificial intelligence, but these are awesome because I obviously need prescription lenses for my glasses, and these actually have open ear headphones, which means I don't need to have headphones in, and I wear my glasses all the time. So if I want to listen to a podcast on my walk, it's really good to be able to listen to my music. It also captures photos, so if I click once, it takes a photo. If I hold it down, it records. I'll also say something and it can like see what's in front of me. I've got the Apple Watch, which has recorded my steps and my workout, so that's pretty cool. Also had a bit of a shit week, to be honest. My grandmother, who I've been really close with my entire life, like I lived with her for a couple of years when I was younger. Like, she's probably been the closest family member I've ever had growing up. She got unwell with cancer recently, and she had her first session of chemotherapy, and that kind of knocked her for 6, and she developed pneumonia, and then the cancer spread really rapidly, and unfortunately she passed away last week after being pretty much fine a couple of weeks before. So she was in a nice place, so she was in Rowcroft Hospice, which was absolutely beautiful, some lovely gardens right in this area in Torquay. Sad to see her deteriorate, but at the same time kind of was expecting it after what we'd seen her go through the past couple of weeks, and she would want me to continue my prep and continue to be happy about things. And we've got a lot of family have come to visit her. Everyone got to see her the day before she passed away, so trying to think of the positives and not let that get in the way of anything. We got the funeral on Thursday, which will be an experience. I've never had a family member go before, so it's going to be a first for me. But yeah, it's not going to come in the way of the prep. The show announced 2 days before South Korea, which I maybe could have done, but it would have mean me not bringing my best. China, which I've already competed in 2023, I'll put up some photos of that now, is on Thursday, the 17th of September. I think Ike, the Czech collector, the men's physique PCA pro, as well as a few others, are going out to China and coming over to Korea afterwards. The way my peak week's set up, I know I've got to be laser focused on the one show to bring the same look. So unfortunately not going to China this year. Personally, just stepping back on stage at my best is going to be a massive win for me, hence why I'm going for technically what's it supposedly would be the easier show, as well as China being quite restrictive on internet connection. You know, you can't use the Western internet, you have to use the Chinese internet, which means communication with clients and WhatsApp would be really difficult, and I can't let my coaching business take a hit. But the prize money in China was something like £15,000 for first place, which is tempting. Very tempting. Korea is, I think it's 2,500 for first place. They actually have a natural pro show the day before as well, which is double the prize money if you're natural. I think natural bodybuilding is a bigger thing in Korea than the non-natural, which is surprising. But It's in Seoul, which is the capital of Korea. Looks amazing. Got really nice hotel booked for a night after the show as well, which is going to be cool to experience. Just thought I'd show you some of Torquay seafront as well. So I'm walking through. There's currently a fairground here, which is awesome. There's these crazy rides, which I would not go on this kind of thing. It's a fair play to anyone who wants to go on that huge bungee thing up there that fires you up in the air, and there's another one just behind it that like rotates round and round. Terminator would probably have the balls to go on. That's like a classic. And then there's all like the kids stuff here, but you go across. Can I get this one, please?
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm going to put my blood test results just beside me here and then talk you through the results of them one bit at a time. Bear in mind this is 6 weeks out from a comp when I have been running quite a heavy cycle for a period of time already of about 10 weeks. First off, full blood count is the first section most people get on their blood tests. On here, this is going to show your red blood cells and your white blood cells, and then the size and the distribution of the red blood cells. The first three is what you want to pay particular attention to as a PED user, because anabolic steroids can increase your blood's viscosity, so the thickness of that blood. And if your blood's really thick, it makes it more difficult to move around the body and can put you at risk of certain issues. So hemoglobin, red blood cell count, and hematocrit will really show these. And if these are elevated, you ideally want to address them. Most people will opt to get a bloodlet. However, getting a bloodlet only temporarily masks the issue. And to bring these down permanently, or at least whilst you're on cycle, you want to keep on top of three things. First off is your sleep and your sleep quality. Really important. People with sleep apnea, sometimes they have high elevation of these. Another thing is your levels of hydration. Keeping hydrated, plenty of water. And the third thing is keeping in a good amount of cardiovascular activity. So doing your cardio. And if you tick those three boxes consistently all the time, then you're at a much lower risk of these raising. Some people are genetically predisposed to these coming up, and you can also have further issues from these by using specific compounds, such as an EQ is notorious for it, or a trenbolone. Luckily, mine are all in range, and I attribute that to hydration, cardio, and sleep. Sometimes they have been raised. I have got bloodlets in the past. I'm not one who's massively genetically disposed to this going wrong. Red cell distribution is raised a little bit. And this is just saying that there's more of a variance in the size of my red blood cells than would be expected from a typical person. Now, that alone, if it's only raised a little bit, is not worrying. These can be random fluctuations. It can also be related to my iron and ferritin, which you can see I have slightly low levels of iron, slightly higher levels of ferritin. I also have high levels of something called creatine kinase that you can see there. And people tend to panic when they see such a high creatine kinase marker, because it's typically associated with how hard your heart is working and whether that's under stress. However, it can raise just in conjunction with muscular stress in general. So I actually trained the day of these blood tests, which is why my CK is elevated. If you take 3 days off prior to your blood tests, then this will bring your CK down to where it should more or less be. Longer off the gym and longer off of doing too much strenuous activity, and that will come down into range. The same with iron and ferritin. This has never been low or high for me before, so I'm just literally putting this down to the fact that I trained before the test, which changed the demands on my body. And I'm also putting red cell distribution in that same kind of area. The other one which is out of range on there is basophils. So usually when I see someone's blood tests, their white blood cell markers are sometimes a little bit out. And usually this is down to an immune response in the body. So something completely random that you might not even notice that you're unwell or your body's having an immune response to it. The thing you want to watch out for is if the same white blood cell counts are always low or always different than they should be, and that same one consistently is, then you might want to get it checked up with a GP. Just because this is a one-off, I'm not concerned. Next part we've got here is my kidney function. So urea is nice and in range. I see this elevated a lot, and usually this is elevated due to a super high protein intake. When people are intaking too much protein, urea is raised, and it's just showing that past a certain point, especially if you see it over 10, that your body's actually burning protein as fuel, and you don't need such a high protein intake on your diet. My protein intake's actually lower than it has been on previous preps, which is why this is in range for me. Creatinine and EGFR are also slightly out of range, but people with high muscle mass can always have high creatinine. EGFR is just an equation that's made from creatinine along with your ethnicity, your age, your sex, and a few different things in a formula, which if one's high, if creatinine's high, then EGFR is going to be low automatically because it's just directly related to one another. With where they are, that isn't concerning, and that's where I usually sit year round, sort of between 95 and 113. If you see that raise above like 120, 130, that's when I'd be on the side of, okay, let's increase kidney supplementation. I actually had my kidney protection stack, kidney and blood pressure stack by Supplement Needs out for a week before this as I ran out. So if I had that in, that would be much lower. I've seen awesome results from having that in. I'm just waiting for my next delivery, which is due tomorrow. That will go back in. So that's going to improve. ALT and AST in my liver function test. Now, part of this could be down to the fact that I'm taking Anavar and Winstrol at the moment. However, they're not massively elevated, and ALT and AST sometimes can raise up again with the creatine kinase and the fact that you're training close to your blood test. I've seen my ALT as high as like 150 before, simply from training when I haven't been on orals whatsoever. So as long as your GGT, your ALP, your bilirubin, the other ones on there are in range, then I don't think there's going to be stress on your liver unless ALT and AST are super, super high combined together. But a thing you can always do is get a liver fibro scan, which I got through Supplement Needs in Bournemouth. They do this and offer this service. So if you're ever worried about your liver, get one of these scans. It'll tell you if there's any fatty accumulation on there. Next part of my bloods is my lipids, so cholesterol, HDL, LDL. This is actually an improvement on where it's been before. My HDL's been lower than this in the past before. HDL is directly affected by using DHTs such as Masteron and Primo. Now, Mast and Primo are normally the safe bet of building up your total milligrams per week without getting any additional side effects. But the one thing which I do notice on people who use high Mast and Primo is a decline in HDL, so your good cholesterol levels. So to combat that, you want to make sure that you're keeping in something such as an Omega formula, such as Supplement Needs Omega Pro. And not just any old weak one, you want a good strength Omega. Also, krill oil can be really good for this. Supplement Needs Heart Stack, Supplement Needs Lipid Pro Plus. All of these health formulas designed around bringing up your HDL and reducing your LDL. I'm also on a very low fats diet at the moment. I'm prioritizing carbohydrates due to wanting to make the most out of my macros and maximize training performance whilst minimizing calories. And generally from in a male bodybuilder, from a physique enhancement perspective, fats are the least useful of your macros on the diet. So that's where we've chosen to bring it down. You know, the only good fats I really have on my diet at the moment are eggs and then the health supplementation. But generally my cholesterol levels are really low, which is a good thing. I'd rather my HDL and LDL be low than both of those be high, even if that means HDL was also high. I'd rather them be low. So my lipids are in a really good place. Also use of something called cardarine. I started at 5 milligrams a day, a very low dose. There's some scary studies around it in rats when they use like ridiculously high doses that it caused increases in cancer cell proliferation. But that was at some crazy dose, and a lot of people use cardarine safely year round to help their cardio, which will also then help your blood count and also your HDL cholesterol and blood pressure. So next is my hormones, and this is where there are issues that I did not expect, and this is why it's really important to get blood tests whilst you're on a contest prep, because the things you want to look at specifically, the most important part of bloods on a contest prep at this week out is your estrogen levels, your cortisol levels, and your thyroid function. Now, my thyroid function and my cortisol, brilliant. Cortisol is really low. Again, this is attributed by the fact that I'm sleeping really well at the moment and there's not a lot of stress on my body. You know, I work a fairly easy job in terms of the physical demands of it. I train, I go out for my walk. I don't put a lot of stress on my body otherwise. I also take supplementation to help cortisol, such as ashwagandha supplement needs, PM priming supplement needs, and that is down in a really good place, which means my body's not going to be holding a lot of water from stress, despite the fact I'm quite deep into the contest prep. Estrogen, though, is very, very high, and that's also raised with my testosterone. Now, these bloods were done short notice, and I had done a jab that day. Sometimes that can boost them up, but not this much. So because I'm already on an AI and my estrogen is already high, I'm going to push my AI up a little bit higher. So 1 milligram of Arimidex every day. And I'm also going to potentially look at switching up my Masteron, because generally 500 milligrams of test propionate probably wouldn't have my testosterone that high and my estrogen that high, and usually it's controlled pretty well. I've never seen my estrogen that high before, so something in my stack may not be what it says it is, whether that's mast, maybe it's the Anavar, who knows, but I'm going to switch that up and have a look at getting my bloods retested in a couple of weeks' time to make sure my estrogen is coming down in range, because estrogen is something which will hold water and blur the condition as you get further into the prep. Prolactin is one which I'm predisposed to going really, really high. I had a big issue with this in my off season where my dopamine levels were screwed. I had to sort this out. It's down by about half of where it's been before. So technically that's in a good place for me. I'm not too concerned about the prolactin. Being that I'm on trenbolone now, this can push that up. So as long as I'm taking some P5P, I'm not going to feel the need to take any cabergoline along with that, as that's something some people do, but I find the risks of caber, such as the heart damage you can get from it, the effects on your mental health, is not worth taking it unless you're really suffering with sex drive issues, and the trade-off is worth it for you to keep your sex drive, and for me, I'm all good in that department as well at the moment. Progesterone and DHEA sulfate. These were two which were completely out before. Now, in my last set of blood tests, I mentioned I was going to be running pregnenolone at 200 milligrams from Biolab Shop. I've implemented that since been on it 2 months, and both of these are nice and in range. SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, is something which will bind to sex hormones such as estrogen and testosterone and stop them from becoming free. Now, this is the purpose of taking Proviron, is that we want to lower that SHBG so it does not bind to those sex hormones, which means that my free testosterone can be as high as possible, which means I'm getting the maximum amount of benefit from the lowest possible dose of that testosterone. Hence why my free testosterone levels are 10 times the top end of the range, but my testosterone levels are only 5.5 times the top end of that range. Okay, so there's a disparity between my total testosterone and my free testosterone due to the use of Proviron. This is the use of using that. So I need to sort my estrogen out is the main takeaway from these bloods, to make sure I achieve full condition and the best look that I possibly can without any kind of water retention. Generally, my water retention levels are pretty good. Like, I don't have any sock lines or anything like that. However, my weight dropping isn't happening as quickly as it has done on previous preps, so this could be an attributing factor. Increasing that arimidex may help to improve that. Next part of my bloods is thyroid function, so free T4, TSH, and free T3. Now, I didn't expect my TSH to still be there in range because I'm taking 100 micrograms of T4, 25 micrograms of T3. And most people, this would cause their TSH to cease production. So TSH is the signal that your brain sends to your thyroid to tell it to produce hormones, and it works on a negative feedback loop, similarly to how testosterone works on the negative feedback loop between LH, FSH and testosterone, whereby if your thyroid knows that there's enough hormone there, it won't send signal to produce more. However, the dose that I'm on is perfect because it's allowing me to continue my natural production of thyroid hormone and also top up my current levels. So my thyroid is in a good place and I don't need to adjust that kind of dose until potentially more bloods in a few weeks' time to see if that has changed. PSA is something which I recommend everyone gets tested, especially as you get older, as a male every year or so, because this is a prostate cancer marker. So if you see this really wildly elevated, you know that you need to get yourself checked out properly. This has always been in range for me, which is good, but I do have a family history. Both of my grandfathers have had prostate cancer before, so it's something which I'll always look at and make sure I get checked, but this becomes more important as you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s. Vitamins are all in range, so this is where I'm at from the current dose I'm on of multivitamin, so it's okay. D3 is high, and that's just because of the amount of supplements that I have in that do contain D3. It's not massively high, so again, this is probably about right. Other things to note, my insulin sensitivity has improved, so my HbA1c has come down from where it was. It was like 38, so it was almost in that pre-diabetic range in my off-season due to how much food I was forcing in. Sensitivity has sorted itself out, and yeah, generally I'm very, very happy with where these bloods are at. We just need to address the estrogen side of things.